Hello friends, in the last video we checked how to create custom issue types. So if you notice, this is my project settings, these are the issue types. So I'm into project settings issue types. These are the issue types which my project currently has. There are certain issue types which JIRA gave me out of the box, like epic, story, bug, task, subtask. Okay, but then there are two issue types which I created on my own. These are called as custom issue types, and these are capability and feature. Okay, we saw that in the last video. In this video we are going to see that every issue type has certain fields. Like for example, bug issue type has two description fields and a few context fields. Then there is this reporter field also, which will show only when there is some reporter or there is some value assigned into it. Okay, so this is how you see that these are the fields. Now if you create a bug, then notice that you see summary, description, assignee, and all these fields. Okay, so these are the same fields that you see over here. Okay, in addition to these also there are certain fields like this linked issue, attachment, flagged. So these are some additional issue types, additional fields in your issue type. They will always come no matter which issue type you select. Like for example, even if you select a story, then also you will see an attachment, link, this, that. Okay, so there are a few things that come anyways. So even after reporter, it is showing these all. So you will notice that in story, reporter is the last field that you have. Even beyond that also you see certain issue type, certain fields which are coming by default, like attachment, linked issues, and flagged. Okay, so this is how you read what JIRA is telling you. So you come to know now that in this particular issue type, these are the fields. Okay, in addition to some other extra fields that will appear at the bottom. Now what if you want to arrange them internally? Like let us say I want labels to be after description. So can I do that? Of course, you can just drag these labels and let it go into description fields. Summary and description, these two fields cannot be reordered because they are created by JIRA. That is fine. Only these two fields you cannot reorder, but other fields you can always move them around. Okay, this way. So this is possible. Even this reporter, if you always want to show it irrespective of whether it is empty or not, you can always move it around. So this is possible. Only summary and description cannot be moved around. Okay, chalo, that is fine, absolutely fine. Now another thing that I want to highlight is, if you make labels come at the top of or before assignee, and if you save the changes, then these saved changes have happened only for this issue type, that is story. If you go back to bug, then label is still below the assignee. Only in story, label will be above the assignee, and I'll show it to you right away. See, in bug, label is still below the assignee as it was, but only in story, this label is appearing above assignee. So whatever changes you make in the fields, they will be very local to that particular issue type. Okay, you are not changing it for all the issue types in one go. So if you want to change for all of them, then maybe go to every issue type individually and then you keep making those changes. Okay, secondly, there is nothing called as restore default. So whatever changes you make, bear in mind that what all changes you are making, so that you can revert them if required. If at all you still forget that how was the default options, then what you can do is you create one more project. See, what you can do is you create one more project, then that project will once again have some issue types, and there you can check. For example, let me create one project, team managed project. Okay, let me say sample proj 2. So it is just another project. Okay, just to see what are the default options of fields. Okay, and if I go to that project, and if I go to project settings, and if I go to issue types, and then if I go to a story, then I know that these are the default options. Now maybe you take a screenshot of it, or maybe you just have it somewhere in one window, and in the other window you select your own project, that is Amit Shirasao tutorials, and here you can see your issue types. Okay, so your story has a label above the assignee, and by default whatever gets generated, JIRA by default gives assignee above the label. Here you have given label above the assignee. Okay, so this is how you do it. These are very practical things. I'm still giving it to you for the new Scrum Masters or the new RTEs. They might find this difficulty. Okay, next thing is, what if you want an altogether different field which doesn't come from JIRA? Okay, so how will you do that? See, the fields that already JIRA gives you are these. Okay, these are all the fields that JIRA gives you. You can search across these fields over here also. Like for example, I want due date, so it will come. Okay, so these are all the fields that JIRA is giving you out of the box. You can place them, you can drag and drop them wherever required. Okay, so you can do this. At the same time, let us say that you want to create your own fields. For example, in bug, I often feel like, assignee means currently this defect is assigned to which person. But I always want to know that who is the developer who worked on this defect. Okay, or maybe who is the developer who left this defect, or maybe who is the QA person who verified and closed this defect, because many a times the bug gets reopened. So when it gets reopened, I want to know who is it that closed this defect. So that means probably at that time this defect was closed and then it reopened. So I want to verify with that QA that when you fixed it when you closed it, at that time was it really verified and closed properly, was it really fixed or not. So I want to know those people's names. So what I need to do, what I do normally is I go through the comments. So I need to ensure that everyone gives the proper comment in the bug. But then comment, I can never put filters on the comment. That is the main problem with comments. So if you really want a field for that, then you can make as many custom fields as you want in any issue type. For example, in bug, if I want some custom field, then I can create a field. I can create these many types of field. I can create a date field, paragraph, short text, number, whatever. So here in my case, I want people. So I'm dragging this and dropping it over here. See, assignee I cannot rename because you can't edit it. You cannot rename the text over here. So I want current assignee. So I really need to change its name. So what I can do is I can just remove this guy, and the new field that I have created, in this I'll say current assignee. Okay, it's a people field. Okay, here of course you can give a description also. Okay, it's a people field. You can make it as a required field or whatever. If you make it required, so it becomes a mandatory field. Then if you want to restrict this as a single user, then only one user can be selected into it. Otherwise multiple users can also be selected in this particular field. So in this field, of course, current assignee will be a single person. Then I want another custom field. Let us say a developer who worked on it, devs or developers who tried to fix it. Okay, another field could be dev who left this, dev responsible for this defect or bug. Okay, then what you want is maybe the QA person who verified and closed it, QA who reported it, and then also QA who fixed it, QA who not fixed it but verified and closed it, Okay, now I want this sequence, right? See, QA will report it. Okay, so first of all you tell me who is the QA who reported it. As soon as so this needs to be mandatory. Okay, this needs to be mandatory, required. Then I also want this to be a single user and may be required. Currently it will be assigned to that particular, currently that reporting QA will assign it to the dev lead. Okay, so current assignee will become the dev lead. Then dev lead will decide, okay, who is the developer responsible for this bug? Okay, who left this bug? Okay, and then he'll put something. Of course, if I want to restrict it, I'll say, okay, this is also a required field, you put it. But if I mark it as required, then when the QA is reporting it, at that time the QA himself will have to put some value into it, which is not practical. QA won't come to know, QA won't be able to say now that this developer left the defect. So we cannot mark this as required at the moment. Okay, then it goes to the lead. So current assignee is the lead. Lead will assign it either to the same developer, or maybe first of all he'll put some value into who is the developer responsible for leaving this bug. Then he'll also assign this defect to some developer and tell him that please try to fix that. Although this developer has left this issue, he is busy into some other thing, so now you try to fix it please. So he'll give it to some other developer, or maybe he'll give it to the same developer. So whosoever is trying to fix that defect, his name will come over here. At the same time, he'll be the current assignee now. Okay, then when the developer fixes it, or let us say that developer is not able to fix it, then what that developer will do is he will assign it to some other developer. He'll say, okay, you work better on this, and he'll consult with the lead and he'll say, okay, please try to fix it. If the lead agrees, then that defect gets transferred to that another developer. So this is the second developer who is trying to fix it. So that is why this field is not restricted to a single user. Okay, and then again the current assignee will also change to developer number 2. Okay, then let us say the developer number 2 fixes it. After fixing it, he will change the current assignee to the QA. Now whosoever QA, I mean either it could be a QA who reported this defect, or a QA who just needs to verify it because that QA is free at the time. So it can be any QA. So the current assignee will become the QA who is verifying this defect, and the QA who verified and closed it. In this field also I want that QA's name. Now let us say that QA did not get enough time, or there are so many defects aligned with that person. So he said that okay, he said to his QA lead that please assign certain defects to some other person. So that defect will once again get reassigned to some other QA person. So that is why in this field I cannot restrict to a single user. There can be multiple QA people who are trying to verify it, or at least they delegated these defects to one another, or maybe even the QA has the best practice that two QA people will be verifying the same defect before you close it, so that bugs don't get reopened. Whatever, there can be anything. So this field also I cannot restrict it to a single user. Okay, and of course I cannot mark it as required, because otherwise this field will have to be filled right away when you create the defect, when you create the bug. Okay, so that's not possible. So all the other fields are not required. Only 2 fields are required. There's current assignee and the QA who reported it. Okay, so these are all the permutations and combinations that normally I think of when I create an issue type like defect or a bug. Okay, now you might be having a different line of thought. You create the fields as per your line of thought. Absolutely okay. Like for example, you might say that okay, I want tentative date of resolution also. Okay, so when a QA who reported it, then developer responsible for the bug. Okay, developer who tried to fix it. Okay, now here let us say that tentative date by which this defect or bug will be closed or fixed. Okay, so developers will give this tentative date that I got the defect today, I will normally take 2 days to fix it. So he'll give a date, 2 days later date in this particular field. You can create as many fields as you want. Then maybe you can say okay, number. So here you can say okay, days required to fix the defect, or timestamp. Okay, when did I receive the defect? Defect received and acknowledged by the developer. Timestamps also, you can have multiple timestamps, like okay, a defect raised, defect given to the QA, given to the development team, defect assigned to the respective developer, defect fixed on this date and given to the QA for verification, then defect verified and closed by the QA. So for that, maybe if you require a timestamp, you can use that field as well. So let me just use the timestamp field and just show it to you. So here you will give the reason for the timestamp, so and so timestamp. Okay, and that's it. So set to current time by default, that also you can do. Okay, and if you don't want it, then just remove it. If you still don't want any of the fields, like for example sprint, if you don't want, just drag and drop it towards the right, whether it is a custom field or whether it is an inbuilt field. You can always drag and drop them towards the right to remove them. Only status cannot be removed, only summary cannot be removed, only description cannot be removed, because these are mandatorily given by JIRA. You cannot change anything into them. Okay, so this is how it is. Now there is one last, of course there can be checkbox. Checkbox means let us say there's a bug, right? So is it a blocker bug? I probably want to know that, right? So I can just say blocker, yes, no. That can be a checkbox. So if it is checked, then it is a blocker issue, then I should be taking it on high priority. There can be a drop down, like for example there can be a drop down saying that environment, and here the options could be let us say any environment. See, normally in certain projects there is SCT, MCT, CERT. SCT means single component testing, MCT means integration testing, so that is multiple component testing, and the third one is like CERT, so user acceptance certificate is received in the CERT environment. Then there can be some pre-production environment or staging environment, then there can be a production environment. You can have any kind of environment as per your industry standards, or as per your company, or as per your portfolio, your project. Okay, so I'm just giving an example that let us say this is SCT, single component testing. I'll say another example, MCT, multiple component testing. Then I'll say CERT, then I'll say pre-prod, also called as staging, or I'll say there's one more environment which is called as production. Okay, so now these are all the environments that I have. So this defect came in which environment? So now when I create a defect, then I will see an environment drop down. Okay, I'll see an environment drop down. In this I'll have to select which all environment. So which in which environment did I find this defect. Then another thing is that I can make this a mandatory field, because this is very much a mandatory field. I really need to know which environment did you find this defect upon. So this is a very, very mandatory field. So I'll keep this as a required field. Then another thing is, see, we saw one drop down. Okay, now let us say that I want dependent drop downs, drop down within a drop down. Okay, but there can be only two levels, because this dependent drop down, I'll just show it to you. When you say dependent drop down and you just say that this is the I cannot think of an example, but let us say, okay, I cannot think of the example right now, but I'll just show you that this is a dependent drop down demo. Okay, you give a proper name of your choice. I cannot think of a scenario in which you will require this, but yeah, this option is given. So here what you'll do is there's option 1. Inside option 1 there can be, let us say, option 1.1, and let us say there is one more option, there is option 1.2, and then let us say there is one more parent option which is option 2, and here there'll be another option, say option 2.1, and option 2.2. I don't know why it is not coming. Option 2.2. Okay, so this is how the options should be in my case, and I'm just saving it. So when you create a bug now, you will go to this field. So I gave a very where is that dependent drop down? Okay, it has not come. I don't know why. I'll create once again. Dependent drop down, it has come now. So here when I select option 1, once again it will ask me, okay, in option 1 also whether you want option 1.1 or 1.2. I'll say okay, 1.2. Okay, now if over here if I select option 2, then it will once again ask me, okay, now which of option 2s? So it is option 2.1 or 2.2. So I'll say okay, 2.1. This is how it is. If you clear it, then automatically the lower drop down also gets removed, because nothing is selected over here. So this is how you can play with the options. This is how you can play with the dependent drop downs. I don't know which scenario you'll use it in, but yeah, that's also an option given. Labels is a very nice thing. Labels normally I keep it over here below the description. So label could be like anything. If you want to label it, like okay, let us say that this is given by so and so person, or this is given by the business is looking into it. So something that you don't want to create a field for it, but you just want some quick label to it. You just want to label it. These are the production, these go to so and so person. If you want to really label it like that, which is by the way a bad practice, you should never label it as per the person, that these defects will always go to the DevOps people, and he is the person into the DevOps, so you'll always say, okay, these defects will always go to that person, so you're labeling it as per the person. Normally you should not do it, but if you still want to do it, JIRA gives you an option. Otherwise, labels could be used for let us say whichever. Normally what people do is people misuse this label a lot. People usually give the agile release trains name also here, or people will give the project name also here. People will give all sort of things over here. Actually, you can create a separate field for it. You can create a field, you can create a drop down field saying, see, these are the agile release trains possible. Okay, you select one of them, or you can create a dependent drop down. Oh yeah, this can be useful over here. You can create a dependent drop down field wherein you will say, okay, please select your solution first, then you select your art, and after that there can be one more drop down saying that in your art which is the team that you have. That will be fantastic. This is how you should be creating the fields. You should not use label for everything, but label field is given. So let me just demonstrate it. Demo label. Okay. Now here you can select a label. So there is no label that is already given. So what you can do is you just create this field and you just save it. Now when I create a bug, let us say, then the first time there is no label. Now let us say I create a label 1. Okay, so label 1 is now getting created as a new label. Okay, now label 1 is already there, so I cannot put the same label again. So same thing cannot be given again, but I can always give label 2, and that will also be a new label. Okay, I created this. Okay, let me give a nice name to this. Let us say epic 1 bug story 1 bug 1. Will that be okay? What's wrong with it? Let us call it bug 2. If I've already created one bug, then let me call it bug 2. Now what? I gave everything, right? Okay. Assignees, of course I have to give the assignees. I made them mandatory fields, right? So I'm just giving my name again and again because there's no other user with me. Environment, let's call it SCT. Okay, done. So I created a defect, I created a bug. Okay, now if I create another bug, then in this new bug I already have certain labels, label 1 and label 2. Some other user, some other bug, in some other bug, some other user must have created them. So all the labels that get created at least once, they always stay there, and they always stay there. Now I'll also give an example. Like if I go to that particular defect, like let us say if I go to this bug number 1 or bug number 2 it was, I think, or let me go to my backlog. Here my bug will be shown. Okay, this is the bug. If I go to this bug and if I, okay, let me just open it wide and clear so that you're able to see it better. How do I open this now? Okay, I'll click this. Okay, I'll control and click this so it will open in another tab so that you're able to see it better. Over here, if I want to remove one of the labels, then I can do it. See, what I can do is I can just click on this field so that it becomes editable, and I'm removing label 2. Now it has only label 1. Okay, now in this case, once again let us verify whether this is getting updated. It did not get updated. Why so? Why so? It got updated. I don't know why this here also it should get updated. So let me just control R. it will always clear the cache and reload the page. So it will reload from the database, right? It won't keep anything on the UI, so you're still seeing it. So label 1 is removed. Now if you create a bug, okay, now label 2 is not appearing. Why? Because label 2 is, as soon as you remove it from all the bugs that are created, or all these issue types, all the instances of this issue type, then this label doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so that label 2 has vanished. No one will be able to see it unless someone creates that label once again. So there won't be redundant labels, label that somebody sometimes used, but then after that no one is using that label anymore, and still it is appearing in the drop down. That will never happen. JIRA takes care of it. Okay, in stories also there are labels. So now let me try to create a story, and in the story also, do I see the same label? I don't see the labels. So label that you create in one issue type, it stays within that issue type. It is not like, okay, these labels are also seen in stories also, in epics also, in capabilities also, in features. No, not like that. You created that label for bug, right? It will stay within bug. Unnecessarily I'm complicating things. If you work in JIRA, over the time you will come to know about all these things. But I'm just trying to make this as elaborative as possible, so that these are the real life situations that many Scrum Masters, RTs face. So that's why. Finally, we come to URL. Of course, if you want to give a URL, now why will you give a URL? So in this story, if I want to create a field, like let us say PR request, pull request, okay, I'll just call it pull request now, or bid bucket pull request. If you are using something else like GitHub or GitLab, then also it's okay. Otherwise, just call it pull request. That is also sufficient. So whatever is the pull request, that a pull request means you must be aware of what is a pull request. So developers normally they fix a defect on their defect branch, then they create a pull request from that branch to your main branch. Normally people call it develop branch, or people will call it SCT branch, MCT branch, production branch, something like that. So they will create a pull request. That means request to pull the code from this branch to that branch. Okay, and then the lead will verify that whether, lead will see that in this pull request these are the changes, these many files changed, in every file this line changed, so is that correct or not? And he will give some review comments. If the review comments are not there, then he'll say okay, it is good to merge, and then he will merge that branch, this branch, the branch on which the developer has fixed that issue, onto the main branch. Okay, means your SCT branch or MCT branch or production branch. Okay, so this is how that fix will come to your production. And then as soon as you merge on the production branch, then some CI/CD pipeline will run. So your let's say Jenkins pipeline will automatically get executed if you configure it accordingly, and it will automatically first of all it will build, then it will run all the code sanity things like check marks, Sona Cube, Nexus IQ, and then finally if everything passes, then it will also deploy this particular build on that particular environment. Or you can have the same pipeline which will deploy on multiple environments. Like let us say this branch, from this branch only you are deploying on SCT, MCT, cert as well as production, then just merge the code on this branch and it will automatically deploy it on all those environments. Or you can keep it configurable. You can check while you merge the code onto the branch, at that time also you can select that okay, you want this to be deployed only on these environments. Okay, so I just give you a glimpse of it. Don't get confused. Scrum Masters don't need to know about this, but I'm just letting you know that this URL field, mostly you will be using it for pull requests. Okay, if you want to know that this story or this defect, it was fixed by somebody. So what is a pull request? You want to know the exact code changes that were done to fix that defect or to implement this particular story. Then you might want to have a pull request. So, and you can make this as mandatory. So if you can say that, so see, the QA person won't close a defect unless there's a pull request given. Okay, you can put that kind of checks as a Scrum Master. Or even in a story, you cannot close a story unless and until the pull request is given. Okay, so that kind of checks can also be put in place. So this is about creating custom fields, or at least or even inbuilt fields that are given by JIRA. So adding those fields or arranging these fields in any particular issue type. If you make these changes to one issue type, they stay within that issue type. So always keep this in mind. Okay, I think I have discussed everything on fields. If you still have a difficulty, do let me know, because this is a very important topic. If you don't set the fields right now, your team is really going to crib about this. Your team will say, oh, that JIRA is really a problem, this and that. So, be an expert in setting the fields, be an expert in setting the issue types. That is very much required. Okay, so until next time, this is Amit signing out. Jai Shri Ram.